In light of the persistent need for New Yorkers to get involved in their volunteer fire departments and ambulance services, state policymakers have been consistently exploring a variety of incentives to recruit and retain first responders, especially in rural parts of the state. Despite the need, a GOP proposal to give a $2,500 income tax credit was dead on arrival in the Democratic-controlled Assembly earlier this spring. For more on the idea, as well as the challenge of advancing Republican bills in New York's state government, we're joined by the Assembly sponsor of the tax credit proposal, Central New York Republican Joe Angelino. Thanks for visiting us in the studio, Assemblymember.
I'm happy to be here.
So you are perhaps uniquely qualified to talk about this space, given your experience as a first responder, both in terms of fighting fires and as a police officer. So walk us through what you envisioned here with this $2,500 income tax credit, and what type of carrot you thought it might represent to people who are either on the fence about joining a department or maybe whether it makes sense to stay involved in a department.
Well, my perspective is we're in desperate need of more volunteers. My assembly district is large, encompasses 5 counties, and I have 47 volunteer fire departments, and one department is a combination paid and volunteer, and that's the department I belong to. Every department is in great need of more volunteers. In the last 2 years, I've lost 2 volunteer fire departments, one in Broome County and one in Chenango County. And one of them closed up and sold all the equipment they had because they had no volunteers left. And the other had no volunteers left, and they shared it with neighboring departments. So through population loss, time constraints of training, there's just a lack of volunteers all across the state.
Mm-hmm. And what are your expectations, though, of a tax credit, which would be worth up to $2,500? Is this something that you think is a meaningful incentive for people, or do you view it more as a nice way to say thanks almost to the people who have already been doing this for years?
It's both.
Okay.
Again, I am in the fire service, and I'm in a fire truck at least once a week when I'm off. And I talk to volunteers. I go to all the breakfasts, all the dinners, and I hear from them. And they're all saying we need volunteers. Anything you can do to incentivize getting more volunteers in the door. This was a big one. Right now, we have a $200 tax credit that just about everybody takes. But $200 is a pittance.
Sure.
We also have the property tax relief. But what we found is a lot of young volunteer firefighters don't own a home. Or in my Broome County area, which is suburban, some of the members own a home but volunteer for a department not in the same area. And the legislation says it has to be, you have to volunteer where you live. So that was a problem. So just about everybody could use an income tax break, whether you own property or not. So I have several pieces of legislation all trying to help recruit and retain the volunteers that we have. Because if we lose them, it's going to be a big problem.
And do you think we need to continue to look at the problem from a how do we get volunteers into the space, or should we almost move beyond that way of thinking about things and say, we're going to have to just pay people? I mean, do volunteer departments even make sense still?
We're on the verge of having to do something. So if we have to go and start paying people to do what the volunteers are doing, it's going to be an enormous thing. Okay. Now, about 5-8 years ago, we had the same problem with ambulance service. That's now more than 50% paid, and it's a patchwork of how it happens. I have 5 counties with 5 different ways of providing ambulance service. We got to get the fire service right. It has to be something statewide. I think there's always going to be volunteers needed because we just can't pay for it. And also thinking about, it's almost like an insurance policy. And if your insurance company said, we don't do it anymore, you're on your own. That's what a volunteer fire department is. It's an insurance policy of something happens, people are going to show up. But right now, that's not a guarantee. But how do we set it up? A rural area, you can't have 4 guys sitting in a firehouse that answer 25 calls a year.
Sure.
But when you need them that one time that a barn's on fire or a car accident, we have to figure out some way. Maybe it's a pay per call or per diem somehow. Right now, we are paying for their basic training. One is called Basic Firefighter, BFO, and we also pay for IFO, Interior Firefighter classes. I think it's $700-800. And then if they take officer schools for leadership positions, they will be paid for the training. But the volunteer fire service where I live looks a lot like me. And when I show up on a scene at 2 o'clock in the morning driving a truck, I'm not the oldest guy there, by far. And, there's not a lot of young people getting involved in this. So we have to start changing our tactic. How are we going to attract new people and retain some of the good people that we have?
Well, I want to pivot to the mechanics of getting an idea like the one we've been talking about with this tax credit to the floor in either the Assembly or the Senate. Obviously, you've got that firsthand experience in the Assembly. I don't think listeners necessarily grasp the fact that you might have the best idea in the country, but because you've got a R next to your name in New York, it's basically dead on arrival. I mean, if you want to get something like this tax credit to a vote and potentially become law, what do you need to do? I mean, is it as simple as find a Democrat to carry it?
I've done that in the past, and it worked. I have a good friend and neighbor, but that member is retiring. So
I'm
that's
guessing Marianne Butchinson.
No, guess
No?
again.
Jeez, Donna Lupardo.
It is.
Okay.
So a very close friend. Sorry to see her go. She and I worked together on the Blood on Helicopters bill and other first responder bills. But so if there is a majority member willing to take this over, because from what I understand, my motion to discharge, which the majority party chose, we don't put it up. We gave them, here's some bills we'd like to have motion to discharge. They picked 3. This was one of them, and they're feeling the heat on that. Now, an interesting thing about the Assembly, there's 150 of us sitting in that room. 100 are basically from the Tappan Zee Bridge south into New York City and Long Island. That leaves about 48 of us upstate, both parties. The people in the majority of the majority comes from New York City, where they have one school district, one fire department, one police department. And again, like I said, I have 47 fire departments and 41 school districts, I think, at last count. So I don't know if it starts out because there is an R after my name, but then it goes further, and I think they just don't comprehend the vastness and the difficulty of time and space in a district that encompasses 5 counties when their district might only be 25 blocks. So, and they have, like I said, one fire department there. So sometimes I just think it's a cultural thing where they don't see the problem.
So what's the right mechanism moving forward? Is it some sort of small d democratic reforms that guarantee bills get an actual floor vote and not just a chance to be heard in committee? Is it something else that's more nonpartisan? What do you think makes sense?
Those of us who have an R after our name represent 6.5-7 million people in the state. And we're very forceful trying to get our message out there, but it's just stymied everywhere. So I chose the motion to discharge because the committee that it was in, I think it was Tax and Finance.
Yeah, Ways and Means, yep.
Would not pass it. It wouldn't even let it come up. So the mechanism is force the committee to discharge it to the floor and let everybody give it an up or down vote. And, there were a few Democrats who did vote along with me.
Right, because you're putting them on record.
Yeah. But, they're on record for the procedure.
Sure.
So, I was told this isn't the correct procedure. It's supposed to go through the committee system. Well, I followed the rules of the chamber, and I said, I would like this to brought to the floor. So the no vote was on the procedural method I chose.
Right, but that's semantics.
But it's killing the bill no matter what you say.
And is there a better way to do it, though?
This is the way it's always been done around here.
Sure.
Since I was a teenager.
Trying to come at it with fresh eyes, though.
Yeah.
What's the better way?
The better way, I think every member should at least get one bill to the floor for a up or down vote. And what is the dogma involved in keeping the the Republican Party with nothing to pass. We get our local bills,
Sure.
name a bridge, tax, park alienation. We get all of that, and we're appreciative because we need that. Our constituents need it. But a statewide bill, there is some aversion that is so deeply seated, I don't know how to escape it.
Well, and it speaks to then how a major part of a Assembly Republican's job, if they want to be effective, is to use that bully pulpit. And it might not take 1 year, it could take 2 or 3 years, but you change the narrative around something that it becomes a Democratic issue. And
right.
We've seen Republicans be successful in certain areas with that bully pulpit.
I think this volunteer firefighter bill, the tax credit, actually took people by surprise. First, that it came to the floor for a motion to discharge, because it put a lot of people on the spot, because volunteer firemen come in all shapes, sizes, and also political persuasions. And this particular bill has got traction from Niagara Falls to the South Shore of Long Island. I've been inundated with, media requests, and when I'm done with you, I'll be talking to a local hometown television station, same topic. This is a big deal.
And the way you lay that out reminds me of a committee vote a few years ago dealing with Gold Star families, and ultimately the bill got held up in committee, and then Governor Andrew Cuomo picked up the issue because he recognized it as a political winner.
Yes, this would be one, for any member, because it's politically, it's what the majority of the people in the state depend on. 93% of the state protected by volunteer firefighters. They come in both persuasions. Fire doesn't know a political party. And 2:00 in the morning on the worst day of your life, it doesn't matter who's coming, but you want somebody to come. And right now that's teetering on doubt, whether somebody can actually come. Like I said, I'm a volunteer firefighter. In my department that I work for, I am the number one person for responding to calls, and I'm in Albany 6 months of the year. And I think last year I responded to 83 or 87 calls. And, but I'm in a combination department. Most of the calls are handled by paid staff.
Well, we've been speaking with Assemblymember Joe Angelino. He is a Central New York Republican. Assemblymember, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad you asked me.
Support for the Capitol Press Room is provided by New York State United Teachers, a statewide union of nearly 700,000 professionals in education and healthcare.